Hello everyone, this is Major Green, also known as Nitpicking Nerd, and in my previous review of episode 13 of Star Trek Discovery, I said that I did enjoy the episode, and I did. However, if I really think about it, I only enjoyed the episode because it had some good action, and the special effects finally really looked cool, and so it was very entertaining, it was very fun episode, but it doesn't really leave you with anything to think about, because it's still the same problem as before. There is no actual story, there is no actual science fiction story. It's all about just the visuals, just the action, special effects, some cool moments, and also the show seems to be kind of ripping off other shows and games and all that stuff, which I'm not against. I can't be a hypocrite and complain when Star Trek Discovery is stealing stuff from other places, and then praise the Orville, which also stole from many other places. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. So if I was okay with the Orville doing that, I cannot now complain about Discovery, but I do acknowledge it. So whenever I notice something that I kind of recognize from other movies or shows or games, then I do mention it. I'm okay with that, just as I'm okay with the Orville doing that. Well, not completely okay. I do prefer to see original stuff, but if you take something a little and improve upon it, I'm also fine with it. The main difference between these two shows is that the Orville actually has science fiction stories, yet in Discovery, most of the show is just a bottle show on the ship or on the ships, and just in a closed sets all the time, almost not going to any planets. So in that sense, I don't like Star Trek Discovery being just a bottle show about space battles, and kind of more like Star Wars than Star Trek, and I am a fan of Star Wars as well. However, I always found Star Trek much more interesting because it actually deals with actual science fiction stories. It leaves you something to think about and stuff like that, and yet here is just action in space. Some of it is a lot of fun, but not really juicy in that cerebral sense. Like, you don't really think about it. You don't have to think about anything. Now, I also do give points to the show for doing those twists. The Tyler twist was a bit too predictable. They left too many clues, and it also took them too long to actually get to the twist. So that was the problem. However, the twist itself could have been very interesting. I still don't know exactly what they're planning to do with it, so I hope there will be some kind of payback, some kind of meaning to all of this, because so far it's just a slow reveal again and again, gradually, but nothing really, there is no substance to it. This show feels a lot of times, it feels like it's all style over substance. It's all about let's make a cool shot, let's do this cool twist, let's do this and that, but no, actually get to the point already. So what was the point of all of that? They still haven't gotten to the point. Maybe they will in the end of the season. And as for the Lorca twist, stop the video here if you don't know it yet. But they did have clever clues all throughout, so I like that. I love that attention to detail, the fact that, and I will do a whole video about this, the fact that they did leave clues to this fact that Lorca is actually his mirror self from the start. So I do appreciate this fact that they really set it up well. However, again, it really didn't go anywhere. So what was the point of that? You had such a cool character, such a shady character with hidden motives and stuff like that. He could be an excellent villain, a recurring villain in the show. But what did they do with all of this? Just throw him away, just kill him off. So all of that build up, all of that setup, all those clues, that was all great. But you didn't do anything with it. So just killed him off. Maybe he'll come back somehow. So if he does, it will salvage it. But if not, then all that setup, getting to know him, it was all for nothing. So he's gone now, and if they bring the other Lorca, then it's basically a new character with the same face. So again, it's all a waste. So everything they did would be almost a total waste, even if they bring the other Lorca. The only way they can salvage it, they can say maybe somehow he survived through the Spore network because he fell into that mycelium core. So maybe he's not actually dead. That's one option. Option two, if they actually go back in time, then they can bring him back, basically the same exact Lorca, so that's another option. Another problem in the previous episode is that they made him kind of a cartoon villain. Like, as I said, he was a very complex character, just that's what I thought. That he is a good guy who is gradually doing shady stuff to win a war, and maybe later will turn into a villain. So it's a very interesting kind of character, and yet after the revelation that he's from the mirror universe, suddenly he turned completely into a cartoon villain, like totally one-dimensional. He's just evil for no reason, and suddenly he's behaving like like a super villain cartoon. So that also ruined him. Even if he didn't die, I would have said, if he's just a total villain with no good side, then that's also boring. The same as good characters are boring, because the ones in the middle are the interesting ones. The ones who are kind of a mix of good and bad. The best villain in Star Trek, I think, was Gul Dukat. because of this, because he wasn't completely evil and not completely good, except the very end when they messed him up the same way as they just did with Lorca. They turned Ducat in the last season. Suddenly he was a one-dimensional, totally evil character, a cartoon villain. So that's when they ruined him. But before that, in all the seasons of DS9, he was a recurring villain, and there was a lot of episodes in which you could see his good sides as well. So he was not pure evil and not pure good. He was somewhere in the middle, just like real people. So he was a far more complex and interesting character. That's what made him interesting. So they had such a good setup with Lorca of having that kind of character, and suddenly they turned him into a cartoon villain and killed him off right away. So that's a big waste and a missed opportunity, and so that was very disappointing. I still hope he will be back somehow, because if not, the show will not be the same without him, because he was probably the only interesting character on the show. And also they wasted the opportunity to do a lot of interesting stuff in the actual Prime universe. For example, there was a lot of series about maybe he's working with Section 31, that this whole ship is a secret project by Section 31. That was an awesome idea. It would have also helped explain the continuity issues, because if it's all secretive, no one else in the Federation would know about it. That would make sense why no one ever mentioned this technology. And we did see some clues of that which were never fulfilled. You saw some security guards with black badges who no one knew who they are, what are they guarding. And so everybody started assuming that it must be some Section 31, that Lorca is working with them, that he's kind of a villain but doing that for the Federation. And so they had so much potential to do cool stuff with it, and now they basically flushed it all down the toilet. Some parts didn't really make sense, some plots didn't go anywhere. For example, they were looking for the Defiant files to know about the Defiant, how it arrived to that universe, yet they never actually got to it. They came back to their universe using another method. So all of that searching for that didn't go anywhere. That whole story arc was pointless. And also they didn't even show us the Defiant, which would have been a cool opportunity, and they could have shown us a reimagined Constitution class, and it would have been fine, because this ship came to this universe 100 years before, so it would be perfectly logical if it underwent some modifications. I would have accepted that change of the look of the ship in the mirror universe, because they had this excuse that it's a century later and they did some modifications. That would have been a cool opportunity to show a Constitution class. But if instead they show it in the Prime universe, they show a Constitution which doesn't look like the original series, it would once again pour salt on the wounds, once again be an insult to the original Star Trek fans. And you know what pisses me off in comparison with Star Wars? In Star Wars also you had like a 40 years gap between when they made the original film and today, and yet when they do the new movies, they still honor that look, that original look. They don't try to change anything. In episode 7, they showed you the Millennium Falcon, and they showed those displays, those computer displays, which looked really primitive in episode 4. It looks exactly the same in episode 7. So they didn't try to change something to make it look more up to date. They used the original ones, so that was a sign of respect, in my opinion, to the old fans. They didn't try to change anything. They showed it exactly as it looked like before. And yet in Star Trek, they always constantly have to change everything. They have to go back to make a prequel, and they have to change the whole look of everything. And by doing this, they basically erase the original. So that kind of pisses off, I think, the purist fans of Star Trek, the ones who want everything to look like it did before, if you go to the same time period. Now, many people will say, and I do agree to a point, I do agree that you can't really show stuff that would look like the original series. It would look ridiculous. I agree, it would. That's why they shouldn't have gone back to this time period at all. They should have simply set this show in the future. If they set Star Trek Discovery in the 25th century, most of these problems would go away. Like, the technology would make sense, that it's a new kind of technology, a new kind of level that no one ever did before. It would make sense. So a lot of these continuity problems wouldn't exist if they simply set the show later on. For some reason they decided to go back. Maybe it's for copyright reasons. Maybe they deliberately they want to kind of regain their copyright so that no one can claim that the original series is now public domain. So maybe that's why they're doing it. I don't know. But for some reason they decided to go back to the time period of the original series and reimagine everything like a reboot. And then claim that it's in the Prime timeline, which it cannot fit. There's so many mistakes now, it's impossible to fix it. Someone suggested maybe they will go back in time to the beginning of the season, in the end of the season, and maybe they will cancel the whole war with the Klingons. And maybe that would fix some of the mistakes, but still there's so many, I think it's impossible at this point to say that it's all ties well with the original series. It cannot. And visually especially, there's no way to tie it all together. So what they should have done is simply leave that 23rd century to the fans, to have the fans make their fan movies of that time period. that would be excellent because fans usually don't have as big budget, but they do have enough budget to make it look like the original series. So that would actually be perfect. So fans should have been continued to make fan movies set in that time period, but the new official series should have been set only later in the future. That would have been perfect. So they don't have to embarrass themselves with the look of the old style, and the fans can do that because it fits their budget anyway. So it's a perfect. Everybody wins. And maybe I'd be fine with a reboot if they do that later on. They still have so many actors from the older shows alive. Why not exploit them? Like Patrick Stewart, all those guys. Why not do something with them one last time in the future before you do this reboot, go back into the past again? So that annoys me. And also, as I said, the whole show is not really a Star Trek show. It's not really about science fiction. It's all about action and cool effects and this style. And the main character is a Mary Sue kind of character. That's another problem. It's not really about team effort. Like Star Trek was always about the team. You always had a team of people. Everyone has maybe one special ability, and they work together as a team effort to accomplish something. And yet in this show, you just have Michael, who is good at everything, and she's saving the day almost every time. So that's also kind of annoying. Just like in Star Wars, the whole Mary Sue thing. So that's the same thing. Numerous continuity problems. I mentioned that. I'll do a whole video about this maybe when the season is over. I'll cover all the continuity mistakes. There are so many of them. The visual style, I do start to get used to it, and it does work in some scenes. In the action scenes, sometimes it is great. So I'd be fine with that in the action scenes. But you know, all the action will be much more satisfying if it has a good story also. But this last episode, it was a lot of fun, but it doesn't really have any story. So it's more like a Star Wars, more like a super villain kind of story. You know, they even had that thing with they open the door beneath the throne room and they throw people down there. It's like in Game of Thrones, the moon door in Game of Thrones, and even that the chair looked like the Iron Throne in Game of Thrones. And so a lot of that stuff is cool. It's visually cool because they rip it off from cool places. But where is the story? You know, even Game of Thrones had a very exciting story, with very interesting. And yet here it's kind of again I did give them points. I do agree they did have some clever things, but overall kind of pointless. So if they set up Lorca as this cool character, that's great. I love this character. But why did you kill him off so quickly? What the hell? Why did you do that? So no, if he doesn't come back, I don't think this show can be saved. So anyway, this is my continuation of my thoughts on the Star Trek Discovery. I'll continue to make reviews. When the season is over, I'll probably do a more overall review and maybe compile some stuff from the whole season. So I will probably rewatch the whole season one more time just to collect all those clips, all those interesting bits. And maybe I will have a different opinion when I rewatch it. So maybe I'll look at it differently. So that's it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.